Hello.
Hi. Hi, everybody. It's Marsha Casper Cook, and we're going to begin now. And we'll have some exciting news soon. Congratulations to the new Pope. And Crystal, you're here, so you can announce who it is on the show.
Okay.
It's exciting for everybody. It doesn't matter what your religion is.
It is. In this
Right.
day and age, you need someone that represents the church, not only for Catholics, but for all religions
Yeah.
and faiths.
I think that's what it is for everybody.
It is. And
Yeah.
you just have to, like I said, in this day and age, you need someone. We all need someone that we can, I don't know, have faith in to
Yeah.
take care of our needs.
Yep. I think
So,
that's true. I think so. We will definitely talk about it. I know they keep saying he's coming out, but so far he isn't. It's a live show, so
yeah.
I think we can do this. Okay, Ziv is here too. Ziva?
Hi, yeah.
Yeah, we're going to announce the Pope as soon as it happens. Everybody's watching, so look up the people. I mean, it's really I'm watching it too, but so it's really a good day. It's a good sign for a good show. The Pope coming on. We're going to be all be caring about that. It is an important thing for everyone. It's important when you watch all those people how much the world can get together on something.
Yes,
No
exactly.
matter what your religion is, no matter where you live, anything like that. But today we're going to talk about. I'm going to let both of you eat. Well, I don't know now because of this, but I'll just add a couple things. So this is going to be a good show.
Hello,
And
Ziva. I was
Ziv,
saying hello, Ziva.
oh, Ziva, are you on?
Yes,
Yeah,
I'm here.
yeah. Oh, here, yeah. So I think that today, we're going to discuss many things about endometritis, but I think it's a good idea to start helping other women that are going through things. So, I mean, some of the shows I'll be having, in the future will be about subjects that even if one or two or three people get help and didn't understand the problem with whatever that is we're going to discuss. So I'm going to let Ziva, why don't you start first and just explain when you found out and how you found out?
Right, because I had always had rather painful cycles the moment I had them. I still remember when I was 11, on my 11th birthday, I started with my cycle, and it was not a pleasant experience. And I've never really had one that was like painless. I had some that were a little less, a little better, but they were very regular. They were very predictable. So I didn't
Yeah.
think there was anything strange about it because my mom also had pretty painful one. Friends had some pretty painful areas, and I just kind of went that way.
Are you walking around at all? Because I think, yeah.
No.
Oh, yeah, because I couldn't hear. Crystal, could you hear that?
No, she keeps cutting
Yeah,
out.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Let me try putting on my headphones then, because maybe
Okay.
that'll actually help.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, 'cause it's hard to tell, but I could tell when we're on here. You know, so this is a problem that starts very young. It's not like something that's you start this depending on what kind of symptoms you have. So Ziva, go ahead, continue.
Yeah. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah,
Yeah.
it was really young and I didn't think anything of it. So about last year, I had just a regular checkup, like a pap smear, and it came back a little abnormal. And of course, I didn't get the notification that it was abnormal because I did it at a different clinic and then I moved and I finally got a letter from them like 6 months later and they were like, "Oh, I hope you got this checked out." And I was like, "Oh no." So I
Mhm.
immediately found a gynecologist in my area, told him what had happened and said, "Can we get, another pap smear and like check it out?" And he's like, "Sure." So he was just doing a normal physical exam and he just put his hands like on my sides just to feel like on the outside. And he's like, "You feel enlarged in your ovaries. I'm going to order a pelvic ultrasound." And that revealed that I had some pretty large cysts on my ovaries. And at that point he was like, "Hey, we should consider an endometriosis diagnosis. Research the symptoms, see if it matches how you have been experiencing your cycles and everything. And there's a lot of variance is the kind of problem. But I realized that it's not normal to be on the couch for 2 days, to have to take work off, to have to take school off every month. And I kind of thought it was. So at that point, he's like, we're going to need to remove the endometriosis, the cysts. We're going to have to do that surgically. So he suggested a laparoscopic surgery to go in and remove the cysts. And he's like, and I'll see if it's endometriosis, because there are other cyst issues. There's like polycystic, problems and other possible causes for cysts. But he's like, let's check it out. And in my surgery, he told me that it was endometriosis. He did remove some other lesions in other areas, and unfortunately, my left ovary had gotten so big that it had actually become larger than my uterus. It was pressing in on stuff, and it was causing me, like right before my surgery, a couple months before, I was starting to feel more and more pelvic pain, especially like lower back, like a knot in my back kind of pain.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh no, I think that's the cyst. I think the cyst is
Yeah.
pushing on things. I was horribly nauseous. I lost 20 pounds. And he did the surgery, and unfortunately, he was like, that cyst completely ravaged that ovary, and it burst while they were doing surgery, and they couldn't save that ovary. So I had to have the left one removed, which was not the original plan. Laparoscopic surgery is usually just little small holes that really quickly heal over. They just kind of go in with the instruments, and it's not as invasive as like a major surgery. But because they had to remove a rather large ovary, they had
Yeah.
to actually cut, like they would, which cuts your fascia, and it causes your recovery time to triple. So I'm finally in the recovery stage
Right.
of regaining my endurance. I had surgery in January, is how recently it was. And in April, I went to see my primary care physician, and was just like, is it normal to be healing this long? And she's like, yeah, you're still in the acute phase. So
Um, so yeah, this is one of the reasons I wanted to have, instead of doctors, I want to have people that had this issue, because women like to hear from other women. So Crystal, you want to also say how you got it, and you have a few family members too that have it.
Yes, mine started before I ever started my period. I kept having pains down there, and the doctor said, well, it's this or it's that, it's this or it's that. And then he did a pelvic exam on me, and, um, you know, it was very bad. It was a very bad situation. And then I started, he said it's endometriosis right off the bat. And then when I started my periods, I was in so much pain that I would scream and cry and do
Uh,
all kinds of stuff. And I was only 12 years old, and a
uh,
12-year-old going through that much pain,
yeah, yeah,
it was just ridiculous. So, they didn't do anything at that time. They gave me some medicine and told me to take extra Pamprin and things like that.
oh yeah, yeah.
And then, it kept getting worse and worse through the years. And after my last daughter, um, I was 24 years old, and the endometriosis was killing me. Literally, I was losing weight also. And finally, my doctor said, I think that if you're bleeding more than a teacup full of blood, there's something really wrong.
Yeah.
So he went in there and he did another examination, and he said, your cervix is disintegrating. And I was
oh
like,
wow.
what? How does it do that?
Yeah.
And he said that I had that, what they're giving kids shots for nowadays. I can't think of the
Oh,
name.
HPV.
Yes, yes. He said it was HPV that you had at some point, and that he was going to have to do a radical.
Is there a test for that? I mean, how did he know that? I mean, they didn't even talk about that for years, right?
I
right.
mean,
You
HPV
know,
is a
the
yeah.
only reason that he said it was because he had read it,
Oh,
like in the National Medical Journal or whatever
right.
that's called. And so, you know, he did a radical hysterectomy, is where they cut you hip to hip and
Mm,
take everything out. Plus,
Yeah.
it was like, I think it
yeah.
was a foot of um, colon also.
Mm,
Oh,
And
geez.
so, it starts out with just pain, but then it ends up so bad. And like you said, it takes so long to recover.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
my sister had it also. My mother had it.
oh,
I
really?
mean, it went
Wow.
through us women,
Mm,
and it's terrible. It's just a terrible, terrible thing. And when you have
Yeah.
to have
yeah.
opioids, I mean, this was a long time ago,
Right.
but when you have to have opioids to get you through the pain and
Yeah.
you're only 14, 15 years old, that's pretty
Yeah.
bad. And
Yeah.
I had to wait until I was 24 years old after three children.
Wow.
So it's just
Wow.
crazy.
See, that's the thing, the age time, and of what people get it very young, and hopefully they get diagnosed so they can, at
Oh
least
man.
understand why they're feeling this way.
I
I
had
mean,
no diagnosis of any kind
I
until
know.
just
Right.
this last year. I'm
I
32
know.
now. But the
See, and the
funny
other
thing is, my
thing,
mom had the exact same
oh,
thing. She
your
had the
mom?
exact
Yeah.
same issue with like the cyst on her ovary. She ended up needing to get one ovary removed, but then she had no other issues.
Yeah.
Then I found out after I got diagnosed, right? They didn't tell me before.
Oh, right. Yeah.
After I got diagnosed, that my aunt also has
Oh,
endometriosis and had to go get like her hormones in Europe because she couldn't get them in America,
yeah.
to kind of to stop her cycles and everything. And
My
then,
two
uh,
oldest daughters, my middle daughter is having on June 17th, she's having a hysterectomy because of the endometriosis.
Yeah.
oh wow,
Yeah.
And who knows how long she had it. I mean,
Well, see, that's the thing, though. Even with young women, they don't get a pap smear or anything. Not at that age, or they don't look. There's no way you could. They're not testing people at a young age. People may walk around thinking, "Oh my God, I'm in such pain," and they don't know what they say. Oh, this is what you have. You know, when you get your period, but not if people have very severe periods that don't know maybe that they have this.
well, also, these young girls that are still virgins and them having to have a test like that,
Right.
uh, it,
it's
it, it's,
scary.
it's very mind blowing. It really is.
Yeah.
And so, geez, oh, Pete, I mean, they've got to do more
Research.
exploring with female
Well, I do have
body
some
parts.
good news, though. I was watching The View before the show, and Joe Biden was on, but Jill Biden was on, and Jill said there's a group, Milken, I think, Institute, I think, and they're going to be funding and helping women's issues. And so it'll be privately, in case they take all the funding away, there's still going to be research.
Here it
So
comes.
she's heading up something. So I'm really happy about that they can start doing some, work on this because so many people have it.
Yeah, it's grossly understudied.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
Very much.
right. So you two can ask each other questions. The reason I wanted no, because you know when you don't have it, it's very different. But everybody that seems to have it has their own story.
Yeah, and every doctor kind of tells you different things about
Right,
it too.
right. So, Crystal, what do you think people should do? Oh, here come. We're going to get the Pope right now. So you want to just say who it is when we congratulations. Crystal, do you want to say who it is?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm watching it and I'm
Okay.
trying to listen at the same time.
Okay.
They
No, it's all
haven't
right.
said his name yet.
Okay. It says Habemus Papam.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
What's
Habemuspapam. We have a Pope.
we do
Oh,
already?
wait.
Yeah. Yep.
Wait a minute.
He's speaking on the
Yeah.
balcony.
I don't have the sound on.
I'm
Right.
just looking, yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway,
No, that
endometrial.
was a cardinal talking. Okay. So go
Oh, was
ahead.
it?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that.
No,
Well,
they're
this is
not
a live,
announcing it yet.
right. This is a live show. It's live. So might as well be live and say it, right? I mean, that's how it is. All right. So I think that, uh, do you go to a group at all? Either of you go to groups or talk about this with other people?
No, I did join a Facebook group of other women to, especially when I was first
Yeah.
looking into the diagnosis and everything and trying to compare. And what I was kind of blown away was that, like, compared to like my experience was just my doctor told me that I probably have this, and I hadn't even heard of it beforehand.
Yeah.
Apparently, a lot of women are, they have to do their own research. They're like confident that what it is, and they just get gaslighted by
Yeah.
their doctors, by their friends, even by their husbands, that there's just nothing quite wrong with them, even though they're in, excruciating pain. And so a lot of them were like fighting for a proper diagnosis. So I felt pretty lucky that my doctor was the one who gave it to me immediately.
Right. Right.
Hey, a cardinal from the United States
Oh, it is. Wow.
is the new pope. That is so shocking.
Is it really?
The
Oh.
United States Pope. That is awesome.
So is there was somebody from Chicago, but I don't know if that's who it is. No.
Oh, I heard there was somebody from New Jersey.
Here's Cardinal Robert Prevost. It says new pope.
Prevost. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Oh, it's from the USA. Good. That's nice.
Yeah. Yay.
See, that brings everybody so much closer to everything. I mean, that's a good thing.
It is a good thing because there's so many Catholics around the world,
Yeah.
but the United States has, millions, um, if not a billion. I'm not sure what the statistics are, but this is wonderful. I'm sorry, I'm
Yeah.
Catholic.
No, right. No, it's okay. I'm Jewish, but I can still appreciate what this
I
is,
know you
you
are,
I'm
know.
not
But
religious, but I
and
think it's interesting.
yes,
we
it's
all
very
need to.
interesting, and because people follow what the Pope says, so it matters to everybody.
It does. In this, like I said, in this day and age, we have to join together. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter if you're,
No, I think this is what we have to do, and this is the thing. I'm also going to try to have shows about other subjects also, because the closer we get to being together, the better it is for everybody, because we all have the same issues, regardless of religion. Sometimes, and this is one, you know. So, uh, Ziva, what would you say to some, the girls out there? They might hear this. I, for their sake, so they can maybe understand. They're younger women. Maybe they don't even know at a younger women age. They're just having
I
pain.
Yeah, I would say don't let someone else gaslight you. If you feel pain, don't try to
Yeah,
minimize it because that's a
yeah,
big thing, especially what I kind of struggled with because I feel like they tell you as a woman, especially if you grow up a little bit religious, that this is just what you expect. This
yeah,
is
yeah,
normal.
yeah.
And that you are going to be struggling with this every month. And I think that, yeah, there are some things every month it's going to have a little bit of discomfort. I don't expect my period to ever be completely painless, even with getting treatment and things, right?
Right. Yeah, and a lot of
And
times, parents don't. Sometimes parents don't say everything that they had. And
no,
that's the
and
thing.
I
You
do
didn't
think
know
that
you were
actually
in it.
it also helps, I think, to help break the taboo about
Yeah,
talking about it. I
yeah,
definitely
yeah,
make an effort to talk about it with my friends, even with like my friends when we're in mixed company.
yeah,
And there's a lot of guy friends that like, they're curious, but they don't know anything about it at all. And so it's kind of interesting to talk about. But a lot of guys who have like, I was sitting with my friend and her boyfriend, and he's like, kind of just listening to us as we
yeah,
talk through
yeah,
it. We
yeah,
each have our own problems. And I think that's very helpful. It helps you make you feel like you're not alone. But I do think it's really important to not discount or minimize your own pain. I learned that endometriosis actually makes you even more sensitive to pain. That you are feeling so much pain constantly that you get a little desensitized to
Yeah,
it and you
yeah.
don't realize it that you are in that much pain.
But
Like
it's
I've
so,
had friends that needed to go to the emergency room because they were in so much pain.
yeah, yeah. I think, well, yes, and see, that's the other thing. So, if maybe somebody had have mentioned something to them, they wouldn't have to sit for 6 hours in an emergency room in
Yeah,
pain because I don't care who you are, it's 6 hours in an emergency room now.
it is. Yeah. And at the
Right.
same time, there's not much they can do for you in the emergency room other than, be like, oh, well, looks like it's your period. Just take some drugs and go home. Like there's not a lot they can do in that situation other
Yeah,
than like rule out those certain other problems that could be, because
yeah,
there
yeah.
are, other things that could have been for like especially pelvic pain. If you're not super aware of your own body, you can misidentify, some other problems, right? But at least for myself, I feel like I became hyper aware of my body. I realized I had a hormone cycle. And once I understood this hormone cycle, it made some of my symptoms make a lot more sense. Like I could see the aura of when my cycle was going to start.
Now, but
And I think that
I would
for
probably,
endometriosis, those symptoms are elevated.
yeah, 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 yeah. I got a message on my phone here, or actually the, there was no sound, but maybe there were too many people on the network.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
everybody's online right now, so
Right. So we're okay now. We're on, but I think that's what happened.
yeah.
It said network out, and then now it's on. All right, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, no. I was just saying that girls should definitely take their pain seriously and keep fighting. If somebody isn't taking your pain seriously or trying to gaslight you, we have a tendency to just,
Yeah.
shut down, or at least society doesn't want us to get angry about it. But I think it's better for us. You have to advocate for yourself or find someone who will help
Yeah,
you advocate for
Yeah,
yourself.
because if you're a young girl and you might not know what's going on, I think it's frightening.
right. And
Oh yeah.
Go ahead.
doctors, if the girl comes up anemic, oh,
Yeah.
take some iron. If
Yeah.
you're anemic and you're bleeding a lot during your cycle,
Yeah.
which usually happens,
Uh huh.
they need to be aware of it. Your regular doctor needs to be aware of it, and they need to speak to the OBGYN that you go to also,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
communicate, because if people aren't talking about it like we are now,
Well, the other thing is, years
other
ago,
people won't be aware.
doctors used to
Other
take
women. Yeah,
the hemoglobin, and they would see if you're losing blood or not, and they would do a urinalysis. They don't do that now.
exactly,
And
exactly.
those years, you could tell. But, sometimes person doesn't know they're bleeding inside. They just, or they have, sometimes they don't realize what the impact is for them. I mean, what's a little or what's a lot? Because you really have to bleed a lot for it to be like a pint. You know what I'm saying? But people, even when because I'm a lab tech, I know this happens a lot. When you draw blood from somebody, they go, "Oh, you're taking so much." It's nothing. Do you know what I
It
mean?
is the Chicago Pope.
It- it's Chicago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yep. Well,
Um,
Pope Leo. Yep.
Hopefully, yeah.
I think one of the things, I'll just stop for a second and say this. I think I read something where he knows like 8 languages, so that's a good thing
yeah.
for
Oh,
communication. So that's good. So we can all celebrate. I bet we'll be on all day, which is exciting.
yeah, it will.
But as to go back to what we're talking about, I think that, you know, sometimes you may feel tired. They don't test like they should on things. And
Oh
some
yeah.
girls bleed for 10 days and they
And
do
then you're
lose a
like
lot.
me, but if then you sometimes you're like me and you really don't bleed a lot. Like I didn't think I had anything major
Yeah,
wrong with me because I was, unlike a lot of other symptoms, I was very regular and I didn't bleed excessively. Especially
yeah,
I switched to the Diva cup and my period lasts maybe 5 days.
yeah,
I wasn't there was nothing that was giving me any kind of warning signs other than suddenly my nausea started getting worse and worse and I started developing more and more back pain. And
yeah.
that can be hard if you don't realize there's something wrong. But if you feel, I think the biggest point is if you feel like there's something wrong, go get
But
checked out and don't take no for an answer.
I know. But sometimes when you're young, like 11, 12, 13, you're almost embarrassed to talk
Oh
about
yeah.
it. So
I
I
mean,
think that's, and then there you go. You're going to have a doctor that's a man, no less. I mean, I still go to a male, but a lot of my friends go to females. I'm still
yeah.
fine with it. If I
I
like
have
the
a
doctor,
I go to a guy doctor.
yeah,
He's pretty good.
yeah. I like. I think male doctors are fine. A lot of women won't, but if you're young, I think a lot of girls years ago would start at like 18 or 19. I don't know how they start now.
I don't
How
know
do you know
either.
when they would go? Because sometimes if they're going to take birth control pills, let's say, they probably get checked.
Yeah, they would go earlier. I never took any birth control
Right.
pills
Right.
until I started, until my doctor was like, "Hey, post surgery, you should go on
Yeah.
these drugs so that you don't have a cycle post surgery." Like I haven't had
Yeah.
a cycle since January,
Yeah.
and I'm feeling great.
Yeah, right. That's the thing, right? I mean, so when I was looking this up, I could there. What what comes up? Medicine after medicine. Going like, let me know what I want to see what it says about it. So even when
Hmm.
you look it up, it just gives you two sentences to know what you have.
Yeah,
And they don't really explain it, and sometimes when you're like 15, it's so embarrassing, like I said before, to talk to somebody, and not even
I mean,
like right, if let's say they don't have a mother, or they don't want to tell their father, I think it could be difficult. So I'm hoping they'll change some of the things. I don't know what kind of training they do now for girls and boys in school, you know but
I don't know either. It's been a
yeah,
couple
yeah,
years now, but
yeah,
I do know that I even at 30, I felt kind of uncomfortable and scared at my pelvic ultrasound. I
yeah,
had my
yeah,
partner come with me. He was very encouraging. That made me feel better, but it was uncomfortable and
yeah,
it was scary. I'd never had anything like done like that before when they try to
yeah,
take pictures of your insides.
yeah, yeah.
And so I can see at 15 that being very traumatizing.
Oh,
And
yeah. I
though,
definitely think so.
I will say that it's not the only way to diagnose it. You might not necessarily have cysts. That's like the scary part.
Yeah,
And it's very much a combination of inflammatory responses in your pelvis and your
yeah.
hormones. I didn't realize that I was estrogen dominant, and that was part of the problem.
Well,
Um,
you want to speak about that a little? What that
I
means? What does that mean exactly?
it means that like my hormones were unbalanced and I didn't realize it. My doctor, he has the theory of saying that your endometriosis is caused by your kind of hormone imbalances and by your period blood going back up your tubes when it's supposed to go out, but kind of filling your cavity and then attaching the tissue, the endometrial tissue attaching to places where it shouldn't be and then growing. But it all reacts to a hormone. So for estrogen, if your body is producing a lot more estrogen, for example, I assume, I'm not positive, I don't know
Right,
how we
right,
could
right.
prove this, that my ovary with a
Mhm.
massive cyst on it was kind of behaving strangely and sending out more estrogen than it should have. And I would have intensified symptoms. At least that was his theory. I really wish that we studied this more and understood it more because I think that there are potentially a lot of like different sub diseases within endometriosis
Yeah,
umbrella because there's a lot of differences in how it goes about and how it portrays and
right.
how it presents. And it's just like, for example, one of the big things that when I was researching it online is that they're like, a hysterectomy doesn't actually cure your endometriosis. You would have to also remove your ovaries at the same time because those are producing the hormones. And
Yeah,
if you have any tissue in your cavity that is, reactive to
yeah.
hormones, you would have to remove everything. And but then when you do that, you remove your ability to have children. Like for myself, I want to be able to have children. I'm not ready to just remove everything. I was so upset when I
Right.
woke up from my surgery and they had
Well, I
removed
think
one of my
so.
ovaries.
Yes. Yeah. And
But you have to,
what if
yeah, you,
people wake up and then they had to take everything at the time?
oh God, I hope not. I hope they
Not
talk to you
you. You
about
did
that.
it already.
That's
Well, who knows?
the truth is that if they have to take everything like that, I would
Did they, when
hope.
when they gave you a consent form, did it say it that on it or anything like that?
He did not say that. He never said that there would ever be a hysterectomy because I told him very explicitly I did not want one. I was
Okay.
not
Yeah.
interested in that because I
Right.
wanted to have kids. And he was like, okay, we're going to try to minimize everything
Well, that
in
would be a
order
good thing for
to.
people to know, to tell your doctor right
Well,
off the
yeah,
bat.
if you
Yeah.
should definitely make your doctor your life goals clear to your doctor. If you're not
Yeah.
interested in kids, like the first thing he suggested to me was a hysterectomy, and I was like, I don't want one of those ever. I would like
Right.
to have kids still. And he's like,
Yeah.
okay, we'll look at other options. So be very clear with your doctor, and if your doctor is pushing you to have one thing or the other, I would go
Yeah.
find a different doctor
Yeah. Yeah.
because you don't want to, be bullied into something that you're not confident in that dramatically affects your life. um, the fact is that once you remove everything, you're going to go into menopause. Your body is going to have intense changes and reactions
Yeah.
to no longer having those hormones. Those hormones are part of your system. Like they affect your bone density. They affect your personality. Like I remember just having to switch onto hormones for the last 3 months. It was an ordeal
Yeah.
because of the headaches and the mood swings and just like feeling so fragile, and it takes so long for your body to adjust to it. That's like once finally you hit those 3 months, you're like, okay, don't do anything else to maybe upset the balance you finally have achieved.
Yeah, see, well, I would think that, what you're saying would be very helpful to people because I think sometimes when people go to a doctor, they're very scared. I worked for doctors for over 25 years and as a lab tech and in offices. But when you get there, sometimes you're so nervous that you don't ask questions that you really wanted to ask.
It's true.
And
I
it
definitely
happens.
I would
Yeah,
write down a couple
right.
questions that
Yeah,
I didn't want to forget to ask.
that's what I would
I
say. If
highly
you, yeah,
recommend doing the research ahead of time, writing your list of questions. That way, when you're there, you don't get the blindness. Because I have a lot of anxiety about doctors. My parents are not very. They have a lot of trauma about doctors,
yeah.
and
Well,
so
a lot of people have a trauma now, more than
there
used to be.
is, there
Oh,
is,
there's a lot.
and so the truth is that doctors are just people. They
Right.
aren't,
Yeah.
they have the education and everything, and you hope that they are using it, effectively, but you do need to check your doctor's work occasionally. You need to make sure that what they're suggesting is helping you.
Yeah.
And, if you feel the need, get a second opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really true. But I think, I think this is something with doctors, I mean, now sometimes they give you 15 minutes and, you're sitting there and you have a problem and you really want to discuss it with them, but they're so busy typing on the computer that you don't feel they're listening. So, and that's when somebody does that, you kind of lose your train of thought because you're watching them, but your thoughts are, why is that person doing that? Not looking at me as a person,
Hmm.
not just as just typing it like somebody, like a dictaphone in the older days, or they used to, people would say something and then they put it out, the secretaries would take care of it. People, when I go to a doctor, if they look at me and then they have, sometimes now they have somebody else taking notes, which is fine. But when they're not looking at you and you're a young person, I think it's probably frightening. And you leave, and then what do you do then? I mean, you are very well versed on this.
You kind of have to be. I wasn't when I started.
Yeah,
I found lots of Facebook groups and read other women's accounts
yeah,
of things, and some of them were just traumatic. They're so much worse than what I had to go through, or they've
right.
had to fight with doctors for 10 years just to get an actual diagnosis.
Yeah, yeah,
It's, there's a huge variety of things, and there's some things that you read and you're like, well, I got to keep in mind that that's not necessarily applicable to my case. That might be a one-off, or it's not. There's also a lot of different subconditions like endometriosis and other things like that. It's just,
what is that, another, is it a
yeah,
side?
for example, there's another condition where your uterus itself is the problem, where there's like lesions inside of it and it's swelling and
uh,
other things.
yeah,
And sometimes women have both, and it's just like, oh my God. And
yeah,
I really, wish we'd have the scientific backing to actually study this a little bit better, because I don't like the fact that we don't have an actual real answer of what causes it. We have two different ideas. There's what my
Yeah.
doctor says about the back blood kind of theory, or there's other doctors, especially ones I researched online, who think that your body has these lesions from birth,
Yeah.
that you as a woman you kind of have these genetically in you, and then they
Yeah. I think that's,
activate when your cycle begins, because women have so many symptoms from the moment of onset. The moment their cycle begins, they have these symptoms. So they're
yeah.
like, well, it couldn't have become later because they already had it. But we didn't study it that early. And so I think that would be very helpful if we did.
Yeah.
And I think that it's it's one of those things that like it's so mind numbing to me that in a country where we're like trying to suddenly get really concerned about having more kids and encouraging women to have kids, that
Yeah.
we want to cut those funding for
Right. Right.
researching
And that's
into
why,
these
right.
issues that really cause fertility problems.
Right.
And
And
that's
that's,
just
and
wild to me.
that's why, Jill Biden was talking about that because she's going to head up this committee, which is really good because then we can't let women's, problems just go away. They're not. People live with this day in and day out. And if you
I
want
mean,
more children, in this
yeah.
world, yeah, you got to help the people have the children.
Really, for sure. And there's a part of me that looks at the kind of the way that this disease is, and you're like, it acts a lot like a cancer. There's lesions around the body, some of them grow bigger, and you have to get them surgically removed. It's like, this isn't a cancer, and yet they say it's not, and it's
No,
kind of terrifying when you look at it that way.
no, I think that's it. I think they do know a lot of things about it. So I would say that's a good thing because a lot of women, Crystal's not on right now. She took off because she wanted to watch for the Pope. So
Mhm.
it's just you and me. So I think that when you get to a certain age, like Crystal said, her daughters had it. So you have to prepare women, and I think sometimes we think, like people have different things wrong with them, but sometimes if you don't talk about it, and that's why, like in your case, you just found out your aunt had it. So not that when you're 10, you want to hear this, but I mean, it does help sometimes to know you're not the only one.
Yeah, definitely. It does help. I also found out that my grandmother at 50 had a hysterectomy because they'd found some uterine cancer.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, is that also potentially related to an endometriosis? I don't know. That was years and years and years ago.
Well, the thing is, none of us really know what's in us until it happens sometimes.
No, not
We
really.
really don't.
And
And so we can't live. The good news is it's probably better because we don't want to keep living with things that we might get and maybe we won't. So I think people
I mean,
worry.
you can't live your life in
No,
fear, but if you
right.
are experiencing symptoms, you should
Yes. Yeah.
get them looked at.
Yeah.
I
And I think two doctors for women are very important. I think the gynecologist for one, and then a pediatrician when you do have children, because that counts. You have to trust them. And I went through several gynecologists. I didn't like them. I just wasn't comfortable. And when I had my son, I was happily with the doctor that was really nice and very understanding to everything. And like I remember he gave me a book and he goes, just read the book. Don't talk to everybody about it. If you have a question, come to me. But what happens is when you do talk sometimes, like, they give you all the bad things, so
mhm.
you're so scared, and that's not a good thing to do because once you're scared, you just clam up, I think. That's what happens to a lot of women.
It can,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that was good that you have a partner that came with you. So,
Oh yeah, I felt very, very relieved. He came with me for like the pelvic exam. He came
yeah.
with me for the actual surgery. The look on his face when I woke up from surgery was terrified.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
and
that's the other thing. Yeah. We're a lot stronger women sometimes on these things because it's
mhm,
not easy. I mean, you're a strong person, but even if we're strong, we still have feelings. I mean, people go, "Oh, woman's strong," but when you hear bad news, You're not happy. I don't care who you are.
Oh no, I was depressed for a little while when I
Yeah.
realized the extent of it, that, it's really nice to receive an official diagnosis because then suddenly you're validated. There was this,
Yes,
we
right.
talked about briefly that there is a huge amount of fatigue that comes with this condition. And I would beat myself up for not having the energy to keep up with things. And I felt like some of my friends were also not very considerate of the fact that, like, I was like, I don't have the energy to do this, or I'm tired. And they're just like, why? Why don't you have the energy to do this? And I'm just, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just
Well,
don't. And
right.
I can't keep up and I'm burning myself out and then getting exhausted. And my periods would be more painful when I would
Yeah.
try to push through to try to keep doing everything like normal society tells you should be able to do.
So
And
what tell everybody what your treatment is now, right
my
now at
treatment
this
now.
point. Yes.
So
What
my
they've done
regimen,
for you.
so post surgery, my treatment was first to just start a standard birth control. I think it was a progesterone based birth
Mhm.
control. And I was supposed to keep taking it and not take like the sugar pills, just to go straight into the next pack so that I would not have a period. And I
Mhm.
did that for about a month and a half until I had a breakthrough bleeding, which
Yeah.
was not fun.
No.
And then I was switched to a drug called northindrone.
Uh-huh.
And northindrone is what I'm on right now. It's an everyday pill, and for the first like 2 months, I want to say I had really rough side effects of adjusting because it's also kind of a hormone based. It's body if you think that you're pregnant, and so first few months I just had a lot of like symptoms, like my I would get those hormone headaches. I was very cranky. I just felt fragile. I was not feeling great. I was still also my body was just still recovering from the surgery. So in
Yeah.
general, my I felt weak and tired, and I struggled with it. I was almost tempted to stop it. Like I really was like, oh my God, I don't know if I can keep taking this. If it doesn't get
Right.
better soon, I don't know if I can keep doing this. And then finally, I broke through to the symptoms stabilizing, and now every day is feeling better and better. Where I
It's so
don't
hard
feel
though. It's so
no.
hard when you're not feeling good and you're taking medicine to know like, oh, I don't want to take it anymore. I mean,
Oh
it
man,
is.
that was rough. There were moments where I was like, I can't even do my work today. I just
Yeah.
have to manage my emotions and manage my hormones and manage how I feel. And that was freaking me out because I'm like, how am I supposed to live my life and go to work and do things if I
Right.
can't?
Well, see that. Well, that's the other thing. If somebody tells you this, and they go, "Oh, the medicine will give you some side effects," but does that mean you can't function? I mean, how? I mean, what are you supposed to do? And that
It's
is a
hard.
problem.
I will say that I am glad that I kind of pushed through because now I feel much better.
It's great.
And I haven't had to worry about a cycle in nearly 4 months. This will be the fifth month. And that is something I've never had to, like,
Yeah.
I've never had to, the freedom of just like, oh, I don't have to worry and have to schedule around
Right.
my period. Like I used to just have a week on the calendar of when my period was scheduled. And I'm like, that's not when I'm doing things. I'm not scheduling social activities on that day. I'm
Right.
doing self-care that week
Yeah.
and they're taking it easy or, trying to change my diet. And now I feel better. I can do things. I'm starting to actually work out again to get my muscle mass back.
Good. Now,
And I'm
what
also
about
taking,
holistic? What about
oh,
holistic?
so holistically, I am taking now daily some Chinese medicinal herb tincture.
Uh-huh.
Elix is what I decided to try out. I just barely started it, so I can't say how effective it is yet. But it had a lot of good reviews, and they're touting the fact that they have two clinical trials that they did,
Okay.
that they
Well,
had like
that's
80 to
good.
90% improvement of symptoms. And that their whole thing is that they have a different theory for its causes, and it's a lot more about like your blood circulation and your liver health and
Yeah.
helping your body move and working with it, which I really like. And so I'm doing that, and I'm also very aware and taking note of like my diet because there are things that make it worse. For instance, I can't have capsaicin, no hot spicy peppers anymore. I
Yeah.
loved spicy things.
Right.
And
Yeah.
unfortunately, I realized that it was aggravating my symptoms. It was causing inflammation in my colon, in my pelvis,
See,
which
I
was
think
making
that's a
my
lot of
stomach
people
hurt.
have these things, and food does matter. I
It
mean,
does. Oh, it
and
matters
I
so
know.
much. Because you have to keep in mind that it's not just your cycle, it's not just your hormones, it's also inflammatories. It is an inflammatory condition. You have an overabundance of it. And
Yeah,
so for me, I realized that if I could keep my inflammatories down, I would have a better month. I had a couple months, I remember like one I was living out on a farm and it was almost blissful. I'd never had such a
yeah, yeah,
peaceful cycle at that time. But I was also like living very, I was eating very clean. My mother is also extremely hyper vigilant
yeah.
about what she eats. She doesn't eat anything with any preservatives, any kind of chemicals, keeps in mind of what she's eating. My dad's gluten free, so they don't eat a lot of gluten. They
Right.
really work on eating very clean. I think that's helped her. I think it's one of the reasons why she hasn't had any reoccurrence of any problems since she had her own surgery.
Well, I would
And
say, when you look at you pick something up in the grocery store and you look at it, and there's like 50 ingredients, and it's
mhm,
almost like, what? I mean, because you don't even know what it is, half the things. And,
no,
right. Many people, I have a lot of food allergies, and things, so I look at the ingredients. For me, the less ingredients, the better. So, and
yeah,
I think a lot of people, that's what happens. They need to have, watch what they eat. So maybe that is why your mom doesn't have any problems right now
at least
because,
that's what I hope so, because that
yeah,
means good things for me. That
yeah,
maybe, in another 6 months, I'm gonna start to, we'll see where my life is. I wanted to buy myself some time that I could get my life figured out, so that then I could be in a position to maybe have
yeah.
kids and get that stage of my life
But I
going.
think you're probably, there's a percentage that are right with you on this. I mean, it says 1 in 10 females. I don't know if that was, I looked it up a little and it said one
Yeah,
in
they
10
do say one
females.
in 10
Yeah,
women
yeah,
have endometriosis, which is a very large number.
yeah. And
And that number may not even be entirely, it may even be more women considering how many
right.
women like myself who didn't even go to the doctor, who didn't think there was anything wrong.
Well, I think a lot of times young people they just feel they're going to just be fine, and they don't go because a lot of them, unfortunately, can't afford to go because the insurance
No,
is very, very good if you have it. But if you don't, people don't realize it.
it's
It's
true.
it's
It's
a
true.
ton of money, and uh, people just don't have the money to do it. So, I'm hoping that they have more clinics and places where women can just go to and don't close them down because all of these issues, and this is one of them, that can be, if you have a problem, you have somewhere to go in it. They can tell you what to do,
Hmm.
but because this is a big issue, it's not a small issue.
No, it's not. There was we had a handyman who was working for our house, and suddenly he had to stop coming because we found out his wife, had been taken to the emergency room. And
Right?
before he like, I had had my surgery and he was asking me about it because he's like, I wonder if my wife has something like this because she's been
Yeah.
bleeding for like 2 weeks out of a month. And I'm just
Oh
like,
God.
get her to a gynecologist, man. That does
Yeah.
not sound right. Doesn't sound normal. And
Right.
it sounded like she ended up like in an emergency room on an operating table, not doing well. So
Yeah.
I hope that they recover. I don't know what happened since then, but I think that it is a huge mistake to completely ignore it, especially when you're
Right.
young, because
Yeah.
you want to, if you can, if especially if it's like a cyst lesion that you can
Yeah.
easily remove, your life is
Yeah.
going to be dramatically better. It
Yeah.
is very scary. I was terrified of the idea of having surgery. My parents were pretty scared of the
Right.
idea of having surgery,
Right.
and we're trying to look at other options. But the truth is, they were like, well, we don't know of any other way
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
reduce those cysts because
Right.
other than to do this.
Right.
And I do feel better having them removed. That's for sure. So, and if you don't, then I don't, my huge left ovary that was overtaken, it could have ruptured at any time.
Yeah.
And that would have filled my cavity with blood. I could have gone into
Uh,
sepsis. There's a lot of
yeah.
problems if you ignore it too long.
Yeah. So
Um,
I think that people, I really do, even on TV now, they're starting to, I watch a lot of medical shows. I love medicine because I did it for so long, and they're starting to address that as an issue. So that's a
oh, they
good thing.
are.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. Yeah. And I thought it was good to see that done because, once it's on, I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but people do watch a lot of TV, and
Oh yeah.
the newer medical shows are really good. I mean, they're years ago they didn't give you great advice. It was just all love affairs or whatever. But I think they do that now, and they're explaining to people some of the things. You know,
Yeah, a
uh,
little bit of education
I
while they
think
entertain
so.
you.
Yes, yes, and I
I
think
mean, I would
people.
still fact check everything just
No,
in case, but
right,
yeah.
but at least they brought it out there,
Hmm.
and so it's not silent.
Right.
You know, and people like in Grey's Anatomy and those type of shows and Chicago Med, maybe some of the things I have a little prop because a lot of them have doctors on staff. So when they're showing it, it's like every time I watch it, I go, oh, I don't know, I'm not gonna shut it off. By the end of the show, I go, oh, this is great, because they're explaining things, you know,
Hmm.
and people will recognize it as something. Because, I mean, I just think it's half the battle is people understanding it.
Yeah,
It's not just a cycle that okay, fine, next month will be different. But for people that have this, I don't think it is different. It's the same. They're scared. It hurts bad.
yeah,
I have a hairdresser that has it, and she would say she was like on the bottom. She was like crying on the floor of pain. So
yeah.
it's not just a little pain.
No, it's not. It's quite a lot of pain.
So I would say if
It's
anybody out there
usually
is
pain
listening, right?
that for me as a kid, Advil almost didn't do anything
Yeah.
for it. Um, it was quite intensive, and I would, just have to ride through it, and
Well,
that
because a
is a
lot of
hard thing.
people do have a bad cycle, and it's not, and it's not endometriosis, and it's
It could be anything. It could be
anything.
any
Right,
other thing. If they've never
right,
had to check for endometriosis, I thought
right,
that I had a normal cycle, and it turned out I didn't. So
right.
I
And
have
I
a
think
friend who she told me about her cycle, and she was just like, I don't experience nearly that pain. She's like, I get like a little twinge of pain. I take some Advil,
yeah,
and then I can go about my day like normal. And I was like, I can't go about my day like
yeah.
normal, even if I take a bunch of Advil. I have to take it easy that day.
But I've heard over the years, a lot of people have to take off from work. They do,
Yeah.
and so for anybody out there listening that might want to think about this, because maybe you don't have to suffer alone. Because if you get this every cycle, maybe just check it out.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely at least get it checked out.
Yeah, and whether you're regular, you're not regular, and like as you were saying, bleeding a lot or not bleeding a lot. I see.
Yeah.
I thought it was better when the doctors did that. The hemoglobin. Uh, I thought it was good because if a patient comes in, they're having a physical, and if their hemoglobin is low, then the doctor might ask a couple questions
Yeah.
because by an exam sometimes. But if you're bleeding a lot, you're going to go down in your hemoglobin and you need like I think Crystal was saying, just take iron, but that's not always the only answer. You have to know if the patient they don't do a lot of things that they did before, you know
Hmm.
and people from years ago, they probably were walking around with this and had no idea, and they just thought there was no hope for them. But so
Yeah.
and that's why at least you're getting help now. And I mean, I talk to you a lot, so I think you're sounding so much better,
Thank you.
and no, I mean that, and I know how hard it was for you. That's why I wanted to do the show, because if people are listening or somebody's listening and somebody knows somebody that has a problem, I think it's
Hmm.
good that they can at least know that. I think it's so terrible when people feel alone,
Yeah.
and like they can't get help, and like you said, nobody's understanding, or your friends
Or
say,
they,
oh, come on, let's go out, but
yeah, what you really just want is some empathy from your loved
right,
ones,
yes,
that will help and understand what you're going through. And even if they don't understand, someone that will just hold you while you're going through it, like that,
yes, right,
that really makes a difference and makes it better. I was always really relieved that my mother was very kind. I
yeah,
remember having these moments in high school where I'm just like, I'm crying and I'm having like an emotional ordeal, and I'm
yeah,
just like, why? I haven't, there's no reason. that I
Yeah,
am like, there's no outside reason why I have these feelings. It's just the hormones. And it's just like,
yeah.
I feel trapped within them. And like,
Well,
I
hormones
hated how
work, right?
illogical they were.
I think they go, oh, it's just your hormones. Hormones is our body. It's made of hormones,
Everyone has hormones. Even
right?
guys have hormones
Right,
versus
and
they usually have,
right,
they're drowning in testosterone. So it's like,
right.
we need to keep in mind that we all have this thing. We're all kind of humans in chemical soup bags that are running
Yeah,
around.
yeah. I think
And if
so.
we
Yeah,
have a little empathy for what we're each going through, it makes it a lot easier.
yeah, yeah. I think and so I want to thank you so much. To come on the show and talk about. It's not always easy, and but I think it's you know if it helps, like I said before, a few people, this would be really good.
It's my pleasure. I actually quite like talking about it.
Yeah.
It also makes it more
Well, it's
makes
real.
makes me it's not real for me. It makes it like I have more control over it in a way because I'm more confident in what it is, and I like to be able to inform other people about it.
Right.
And
And I
it's
think, yeah, if
my
you're
own
right,
experience with it.
and you started so young, so I think that
Oh
that's an
yeah.
interesting point. And as Crystal said, she started young too. So because I know what doctors, they go like, oh, fine, next month will be better or whatever. But for you,
Hmm.
next month wasn't better, and next month, every month it wasn't better. So it was
No.
just a constant. So now you're on your road, I hope, because you said you're feeling better. You sound much better,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you're
I'm
on a
I'm sure
regime.
hopeful.
Yeah, and you're on a regime. Uh, Before we go, I should say one thing about next week. I'm going to have a lot of different shows about, different topics that people wanted to hear. So I'll be putting it out online of what I'm doing. But next week, Belsky and Bonnie Tremore. Dick Belsky's been on a lot. They wrote a book called Swipe, and he's a great writer. I'm going to be meeting Bonnie, but it's about the dating, finding somebody on a dating app, and
Mm.
there's murder involved. But I wanted to add this especially because I've noticed online several women talking and saying, if you go to a bar, if you go out to a party, make sure you hold your drink and do not walk away and then come back and drink your drink.
Yeah. You have to be
And
real careful with
but
that.
that's a problem
Oh yeah.
because I saw millions of people are
Oh, it's
sharing.
happened to me once.
It did.
Oh yeah, I was at a bar with a friend, and there was, we were having a good time. We had just a couple beers, and then like some guys bought us some shots, and I had a shot like from the bar, and then suddenly I
Mm,
was like suddenly a lot more drunk than I should have been. We had to
yeah.
like walk back home, and then I started throwing up. I was very
Oh,
sick for the next
yeah,
day and a half, and we ended up like she ended up calling the bar to complain, being like, "Hey, I think someone spiked her drink."
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
and the bartender got a little too defensive about it, and we were like, "Hmm, we're not going back there."
Right. Yeah. And I think so. That's just one of the things I wanted to say because I think it's really important because, if you're going out, just make sure. Oh, and also they said if you're going on an Uber, don't take any drink that they give you.
In an Uber?
Yeah, that's what they
Yeah,
were saying online.
don't take an Uber drink. That sounds
Well,
like
I
a
mean, if he
terrible
gives you,
idea.
but no, but even if they give you, like water,
Like
just bring your
closed
own.
water bottle. Yeah, bring your
Yeah,
own. I would
just bring
agree.
your own. And
I
so
mean,
I
I don't
think
like the fact that we can't trust people like
this
that
is
in
how it is.
society,
This is
but right
how it is.
now, yeah.
I mean, listen, like you're saying, the bartender, you didn't like what happened. So I mean, like that's part of life. We don't know everything. So
Yeah.
and women are, it's scary a lot of times. I think of it's very scary now. When I was younger, I didn't think about all this. Maybe my parents did, but I didn't. But I think the younger people now, like you're all aware of things.
Hmm.
But even as good as we think we, are, and we know this and that, just be a little more safe, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. 'Cause I've seen this message many times lately. So it's probably, so we'll see what they say about meeting on a dating app because a lot of people meet that way.
Oh man, I can't. I have a hard time with dating apps. I'd be interested to hear what they say.
Yeah, right.
I can't connect to a person that way. It's
I
just
know.
the picture. I personally liked going to in life venues,
I
something
know.
that I enjoy so I can see a person, how they behave in their habitat and get to know them a little bit before I'm actually
But
interested.
During COVID, that's what people did. And it worked out
Yeah,
for a lot of people. It does, it
it
really,
does.
yeah, just be careful. So as long as we're discussing women, might as well add that in. Okay. So, and I'll see everybody next week, and I hope you feel good. And you want to just, uh, you have a company. I'd like you to just say that for a second, what you
Say what?
do. Say,
What do I?
your websites and what you
Oh
do.
yeah, I do web design for and web consultation for authors, specifically helping authors get their books published, getting their web presence set up. I have a website called theravenword.com, and I am available to help get your book out there or even get your blog set up, or even if you want to set up email marketing, all of those little things. I
Yeah.
am here to help out, especially if you're, not as technologically savvy, or if it's just very intimidating because you've never done it. I have
Yeah.
resources that I can help you out with. So drop by and give me a call.
Yeah, she's done my websites, and I talk a lot, so I'm starting to not. I have to text her because there's too many conversations. Because as everybody knows, I do talk a lot, but she does really good work. Crystal also does marketing, but I have my websites, and Ziva handles all of that. So I didn't want to talk about that during the show, but we're almost done. So if you're in need of any website, just let me know, and I'll send you on to Ziva.
Awesome.
All
Thank
right.
you.
All right. So take care, and I hope everybody has a good day. And congratulations to the first American Pope, Pope Leo.
Yeah, I
Yes.
guess so. Pope Leo.
Chicago. I can't imagine what's going to go on here.
It's going to be a crazy
Chicago.
party, that's for sure.
Oh, in Chicago? Oh, my God. I'm sure there is. Okay. Thank you all
Thank you.
for
Have a good
listening to.
day.
All right. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.